Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Automate It podcast. I want to thank y'all for joining me today. It's been a while since I've done this alone. Last month, I was joined by Landon, and we got to go back and forth talking about Linux topics. But today, I'm back by myself with my dog and coffee, and it's been an eventful end of the summer for me. So I have a 4-month-old son right now, who learned how to scream. He's learned how to roll, and a lot of my energy when I'm not thinking about IT topics is going there in conjunction with the rest of the family. And so I wanted to try something a little bit new today, where in the past I was the type of person who really liked to sit down with a cup of coffee and write a script and really outline my ideas as verbosely as I possibly could. And I decided that maybe now I can just be a little bit more natural with a list of bulleted topics that I want to see if I can actually convey off the top of my head instead of relying on a script that I just made in a caffeine induced stupor. So with that being said, thank you for joining me. And today for the month of October, our theme is cybersecurity basics. So I like for my discussions to be broad and talk about things that are not just specific to Automox. But of course, I can't help but mention that Automox has a massive part to play in cybersecurity, mostly because keeping your software up to date and being up to date with patching is a massive part of your cybersecurity dependence. Now, I remember because at one point I did pursue a CompTIA, assuming that's how you pronounce it, CompTIA Security Plus. And I remember I was using certain sites and online courses to get familiar with the topic. And one of the first things that they talk to you about is the human factor. So before going into anything more technical like patching, I want to talk about that. So I remember, because it's one of the few sentences that I remember so vividly, when somebody talks about hacking, my brain goes to the movie Hackers, and I think of green text floating down a screen like the Matrix or something. That was always my first depiction of hacking. But I like to think of hacking, and I'm sure other people do it too, is that hacking could be determined as using any means unethical to gain access to a computer system. It doesn't even, I guess at this point, I've also had run-ins now with a penetration tester who tested actually physically penetrating secured office buildings and whatnot. And similar to the cybersecurity element, it was the human factor that is really your first line of defense here. So to quote something that I stole from Google, in cybersecurity, the biggest risk isn't the technology, it's the people using it. And now in the business climate that we're all in, a lot of us have LinkedIn. For some of us that are developers or work on more technical projects, we might have a GitHub or be part of certain Reddit communities, different other forums online where we might associate a username across multiple platforms. Having a GitHub or, just to say it again, our email addresses, our contacts being available on LinkedIn were open public for many people to look at it. And this opens us up to the big topic of social engineering. And just to give a very common example, the first thing we think of is phishing. Using somebody got your corporate email address. How did they do that? Well, it's on LinkedIn. Everyone can do that. And somebody could just tell, oh, it's the same first letter and last name. That must be the email format for everyone else in the company. So then it's easy to guess. And I have gotten text messages, mostly emails, but I've gotten text messages and emails from my CEO saying that he had a special opportunity for me and needed for me to respond. Don't worry. I don't think I'm that special. It was more so that I could tell And I have experience with knowing, okay, this might be a bad actor wanting to get some information from me. But some people might not think like this. I don't want to give too specific of examples here, but this just kind of goes to showcase that we, as working at our respective companies, are our personal protection to sense that, oh, this doesn't seem right. Um, that is the first line of defense for keeping the company's data and the company's anyone else's personal identifiable information safe. Another thing that is said in the cybersecurity basics is the topic of zero trust. Zero trust basically meaning I want to verify everything. And not only from a technical perspective is that something that is applied or a principle applied, but it should also be something applied to your normal communications. Just again, if I got an email, someone's asking me to sign into a service that I would not normally sign into, or someone's asking to provide my email address and password for a service that I'm pretty sure we don't use. These are kind of receptors that should be going off in your brain, or in anyone's brain really, to understand, okay, no, am I sure I'm talking to who I really think I'm talking to? So ransomware, credential stuffing, obviously these are more technical terms related, but it all starts with the personnel of a company wanting to protect themselves and just be mindful of information that they're giving out, verifying the sender before you're clicking anything. And also a big one, using multi-factor authentication before wanting to sign into a certain service. And nowadays, sometimes it is annoying having to reset your password every 60, 90 days or 6 months, but this is a very good security practice just to make sure that we're keeping ourselves as protected as possible. Now that I've kind of talked about the human factor of keeping yourself, your personal data, and also your company's data secure, why that human factor is so important, I also want to take a moment to talk about patching. Probably the most simple fix that some organizations aren't doing timely enough, or unfortunately aren't doing thoroughly enough. Obviously, hello, I being an Automox podcast, I want to talk to some extent about patching. Now, according to some information that I was able to find, fewer than 12% of large enterprises patch Windows OS within 1 week. Now, obviously, we know about Patch Tuesday and having, a monthly release cycle, but also how strictly are you planning and testing around those releases? I think a lot of IT teams are, but one benefit that I've had from working with Automox is that we get to see how certain people want to establish their policies. So, as an example, just going to use Automox as a vague example, you can actually set filters for how long you want a patch to be available in the Windows Update catalog before it's pushed to your devices. And in this case, you could set a filter for 5 days or 7 days. This gives you and your IT team time to test before you're just randomly pushing patches and blue screening workstations and other endpoints. But besides the point, this guarantees that if you want to make sure that you're hitting those critical patches within 7 days of Microsoft's release, you're able to automate that. I can just set the filter anything older than 7 days, make it available in the next policy run. Now, another idea too is we should all be accountable for working collaboratively as a team to make sure we're aware of really high severity vulnerabilities that are affecting endpoints, or not even endpoints within our organization, but just in general throughout the IT landscape of the world. I'm struggling to think of a specific example, but just for example, I'm a senior solutions consultant on the professional services team, and we're constantly in communication with each other, whether it's Slack or email or just weekly team meetings. If a massive vulnerability gets known about from Bleeping Computer or our SecOps team mentions it, usually we'll mention it on our team too, just so that we understand that, okay, we should expect Automox users to ask about this, or we should expect to see this and questions about this coming up as people as we approach Patch Tuesday and et cetera, et cetera. And there are so many tools that you can leverage to automate your patching, but please make sure that you're staying up to date with some way of tracking CVSS scores, risk mitigation and asset value tools. Obviously, I want to talk about Automox because we're going to have the ability to review what severity certain patches are containing. And if you decide that something released on Patch Tuesday has a severity of critical, and you don't want to wait 7 days for testing, you have the option to just do a day one patch deployment, 0 day, just get these fixed and secure our environment as quickly as possible. Patching really is the easiest solution to make sure that you're keeping your environment and your organization as safe as possible. On the topic of maintaining fast deployment of Windows OS patches or Mac OS OS patches, third party is also something to take into consideration. There are certain programs and certain vendors that release minor updates multiple times a week, but you want to make sure that you're maintaining visibility into, okay, what is being released when, but also can I see out of all of my patches that are available, what is important enough to be pushed daily or weekly. Sometimes, admittedly, sometimes it can be too much to just throw updates and updates at my devices that might be causing reboots or might be causing users to get their workflow interrupted. Before I close talking about patching, it would be a good time to mention too that while automation is ideal, when creating patch policies, it's best that you have human controlled automation to take into consideration, do we want to touch patches based on severity first? Which I do think is a great idea. If I want to focus on my day ones and my day zeros, just prioritize critical patching. But also, if you're having human controlled automation, I think this gives your IT administrators the ability to leverage a tool such as Automox to focus on OS updates and third-party updates separately. Instead of just having, just unplanned automated policies, you can avoid things like overpatching, or that's not the word I want to use, like patch fatigue or patching fatigue. Really just having your IT team be specific in what can I target in terms of severity, what third-party programs are significant enough that they can run on their own patch cycle on specific days, or certain extra scripts done to handle the closing of certain programs, things to take into consideration like this. Because one last closing note is that while it's good that tools are able to give us CVE mapping and clearly outline CVSS scores, this can also unfortunately become kind of like a roadmap for bad actors, giving them an idea of what they want to target and how quickly. Because as we just talked about, a large number of organizations are not patching those critical updates within a week. And this gives bad actors 7 days to act on those vulnerabilities. So I feel like I've gone over my normal time. I want to thank you for listening if you've made it this long. My name is Jeremy. Thanks for tuning in. I do this every month, and I'm hoping to keep this format a little bit more organic now. So with that being said, I will keep my same closing that I use all the time, because I think myself and maybe someone else would like to hear it. But please be kind to yourself at work and at home, and I'll catch you guys later. Thank y'all.